As we're getting ready to dive into quality of service, there's a few things that we need to do to our existing Juniper V app to get it ready for kind of our next set of tasks we're going to have. So in this video, I'm just going to walk through a few things, getting the network adapters switched around. We are going to erase one of the firewalls and get DHCP and some of the NAT and everything like that set up so that when time comes for you to actually go in and do quality of service, this part will already be done for you. So first thing I'm going to do with the VApp being stopped here is switch around the network adapters. So what I want to have is this first SRX to be connected to not LAN and WAN anymore. We're going to have it connected to the LAN network and also the vCloud internet. So if we're going to do QoS, it's always more interesting if we can do it against real internet traffic and those types of things. So with the VApp powered off, just go to Properties, Hardware, scroll down to the networking and just switch the NIC 0 to vCloud Internet. Make sure it's on DHCP. And then also just to avoid any MAC address conflicts that we might have, just to be safe, go ahead and hit reset on that and then click OK. So that'll take just a little bit for that to update. And so while that's going, I'm going to power up the Windows 10 VM. As long as that one's connected to LAN, that'll be just fine. So we can go ahead and power that on as soon as it lets us. We'll see if they're still updating here. Just have a little patience while this is updating, then we'll keep going after that. Okay, so everything's powered off now. It's fine. We can just go ahead and start this first firewall that we just changed. So as you can see now, the NIC 0 is connected to our vCloud internet. So let's go ahead and boot that up. And you can leave this middle firewall off. It really doesn't matter. I don't think we're going to end up using it. So to kind of save space in the lab, you can leave that one off if you'd like. If you powered on, not a big deal. Just kind of be aware that if it's connected to the LAN and serving DHCP or anything like that, you might have a little bit of a conflict there. But and we play the waiting game here a little bit more. Okay, so that firewall is booting up. Get the Windows machine booting up as well, so it's ready for us whenever that takes place. But first thing we're going to do is just jump on the SRX that is booted, or at least according to vCloud, it's booted. We don't know what the operating system is really doing. And it looks like it's actually still starting up here a little bit. Okay, there we go. So when we are fully booted up here, a couple things we're going to do, just go ahead and log in. And we should have the default password of password 1 exclamation point on it. And if you remember from what we did last covering MPLS, we had to basically turn this into a stateless firewall. So the easiest way to get around that, kind of convert it back, is we'll do a request system zeroize. So just wiping out the firewall. It'll go down for a reboot and it should come back up just fine. So that'll take another minute or two. In the meantime, we can check on the Windows 10 VM and just see that that's going to be set up and ready how we need it. So on Windows 10, basically the only thing that we're going to need is just to make sure that the network adapter that we have is connected to the LAN, so just being the first part there, and then set up for DHCP. So we'll kind of try to make this a little bit easier for ourselves. But we'll see which one of these comes back first, and then we can start there. Okay, looks like Windows 10 is being a little bit pokey, so no worries. We'll just keep chugging away here on the firewall, and we can go check Windows as soon as we're done with that. So from the firewall, just a few basic things that we need to do. I'm going to log in here, and you see we don't have a password, so it's been reset. First thing I want to do is just do a show configure and make sure that the firewall is actually back in a stateful mode, so kind of the default normal operation from that. So we'll kind of scroll through this. Basically, if we get past all of the syslog stuff, we can see all of our policies. All of our zones are back. Should be okay. So we're going to go into configure mode, and I want to do a couple of things here. We're going to set up IP addresses on the WAN and LAN interfaces. We will go set up a DHCP pool, make sure that our Windows 10 host can pull an address, and then also make sure that we have the web management access from the inside of our network enabled as well. Now keep in mind when we're going through this, there's a lot of securing that you could do to this to make it a little more of a hardened configuration, but for the sake of just this video and what we're going to do with QoS, we're kind of going to go for the let's get this done, and we'll save some of those steps for ourselves. So first thing we're going to do is set up our password. So root authentication, plain text password, and kind of choose what you'd like. I'm just going to go with the standard password, one bang. Get that set up in there. We'll do our set interface, gig00, unit 0, family inet. And instead of just setting the address statically, so like what we normally do, since this will be connected out to that vCloud internet network connection here, we are just going to do this as a DHCP client. So we'll do set family inet DHCP. So hopefully this will pull an address that way. We also need to set up our, we'll do our LAN interface. So this one we can actually statically set. And I'll just choose something simple like 192.168.1.1/24. And that should be good. So the other couple things I wanted to do here real quick was just set up the DHCP pool, and then we can go check to make sure all of our addressing works before we start getting into all of the system services and things like that. So let's go into, we'll do edit system services DHCP pool, and we just give it the subnet address here, so we'll do 192.168.1.0/24, since that's what we chose for our inside network. We'll do a set address range, and we have to set our low and high values, so I'm going to choose our hosts will start at 100, and they will go up to 200. The range really doesn't matter, just choosing something. We're only going to have one host back here, so that really won't make too much of a difference for us. Okay, so within DHCP we don't need to set up a whole lot, so we can skip the domain name since we really don't have one. Name server, that will come in from, basically we can set that up to be Google or something like that, so let's do name server, and then we'll do just 8.8.8.8. Make sure we can actually get out to the internet that way. Another couple things here we can do, we can set up the default gateway, so we'll do set router 11. We can set our default lease time, which kind of the standard here of 3600. Perfect. The other thing I need to do just to make sure that that Windows 10 host can pull a DHCP address is we need to just allow that as an inbound service. So I'm just going to allow everything inbound to that gig01 interface. So we'll do set security zones. So set security zone trust. Interface is that was GE001.0. And then we want for the host inbound traffic, system services all. So just really allowing everything into that interface, including DHCP. So let's do a show compare just to see what we've all set in here, and we can walk through that. So we set the root authentication. We created a DHCP pool with our address range and the name server pointing out to Google. We may or may not need to change that here, depending on if we can get out from the lab to that IP. But otherwise, default gateway, our outside interface is going to get its address through DHCP. Inside interface is set statically. And we have the inside interface in the trust zone with everything being allowed in. Let's do a commit. We'll check it. No errors, which is good. We'll do a commit comment. We'll just say set up initial addressing. Okay, so we can exit out of config mode. Let's do a show interfaces terse just to see what we've pulled for addresses. And perfect, you can see the gig0 has pulled what looks like a IA lab IP address internally here. We've got our gig01, which is the static address that we had set. Let's go check our Windows 10 box, which has finally booted up sometime in the last however long it's been. And just make sure that this Windows 10 box pulled a IP address. So I'm going to go into my network interfaces here real quick and just make sure that we've got a network adapter set up for DHCP. Which it is. And then let's check our IP addresses here. And IP config. Perfect. So it's pulled the first address. Let's just double check that we can actually ping that. And it looks like we can hit our gateway, so everything should be good. We'll kind of keep marching forward then and get the rest of this config set up here. So exiting out of the Windows 10 box, we will go back onto our firewall. And I just want to make sure that I can get into this firewall via SSH as well as with the web access. Okay, so I'm going to do a show configuration. Here's a couple system services that we're dealing with right up on top, SSH and web management. So we'll jump right into those. So we'll go into configure mode, and then we'll do edit system services. We can start with web management here. And let's just delete HTTP. So we can make this a little bit more secure. We will do set HTTPS, and I want the interface of GE 001 unit 0. We'll do set HTTPS to use the self-signed certificate, and we'll just do an up here and do a show. So our web management, basically we just moved it over to HTTPS and then specified our interface for it. Another thing we want to do is just modify SSH a little bit, so we'll do edit SSH. You can see there's quite a bit in here that we can actually set. A couple things that we're going to set here real quick though is we'll just do we'll do the root login, which actually will be fine. Let's just set the version here. So we'll do set not sure why I can't see this here. Set, well, in that case, this should be fine. Let's do a commit check. And everything succeeds there, so we'll do a commit comment. Since we really didn't do anything with SSH, we'll just do enabled HTTPS on the inside. Perfect. Getting closer here. Last couple things we need to do then is go back to our Windows 10 machine and see if we can hit the inside web interface. So we'll pull up browser of choice. Now it looks like we're stuck with Edge, so we'll pull up Edge here, which this will work. And we'll go to our firewall, so on HTTPS, don't forget that part. And you can log in with your root account. And the default password of password1bang. Cool. So the last thing we really need to do here before we can really start testing stuff is we need to set up SourceNet so that our inside subnet, where this Windows 10 host lives, can get out to the internet here. So we're going to create a SourceNet rule here, so we'll just do add. And we're going to do this zone-based. It's a little bit easier here, so we'll do, I'll just call this SNAT inside. Do SourceNet from inside, which is trust, to outside, which is untrust. So our source, where are we coming from? Our host lives in the trust zone. Where are we trying to go to? This would be the untrust interface, which is where our outside interface lives. And we'll just hit OK on that. So that looks successful. If we go up here to actions, we can do a commit. And we should have the proper NAT translation set up. So what I'm going to do next then is, if the SNAT and everything is working, DNS and all that's working, we should be able to just go to google.com. And not what we're hoping to see, we can't reach the page, so we'll start doing a little bit of troubleshooting here. First thing I want to do again, just quick check my ipconfig, make sure everything looks good, so we'll do an ipconfig all. And we see our DNS and everything like that should be okay. I want to make sure that DNS is actually working, so we'll do an NS lookup here. And that doesn't look so good. So DNS request timed out. So probably our problem is that we can't just straight query Google's 8.8.8.8. So if I do something like google.com, since that DNS server is timing out, we're probably not going to get a response back, which will be breaking our internet, obviously. So real quick, I will go find the DHCP or the DNS address that we need set for DHCP, and we'll be right back here in a second. Alrighty, we're back here and figured out the problem. Didn't actually end up being a DNS server reachability problem. We forgot one step while we were configuring the NAT on here, so I can show you what that looked like, and then we should be done with this config here. So originally when we went through the source NAT, we had set it up correctly here where we had the from zone trust to zone untrust, but we forgot to create is the rule. And the rule basically says what traffic should be natted, so I will walk through that again here real quick, just so you can kind of see what it looked like. So I'll get rid of that for now. Okay, so this is what our NAT configuration looked like here before I had paused the video. To add a rule in, we can just give it a name, so like snat rule 1. And we need to say like what traffic should be natted. We don't really care as long as it's on that trust interface going to the untrust. We'll add all of them to be natted going out. So 0000 slant 0. And same thing, we don't really care what address it's going to get natted to. It's just going to choose the interface address. So we can leave port any. We need to set the source NAT with the egress interface and hit OK here. Okay, so you actually have a rule created with your NAT. So let me validate that. We'll hit OK. And then come up back and commit it. Okay, so all of that should be good. Next thing I'm going to do is just quick test it. So you kind of show again what we had here, the IP config. So you can see all of our DHCP stuff is the same, so same address, same gateway, everything like that. DNS server, we left at 8.8.8.8. And what we should hopefully see here is that when I do a NS lookup, right, so it's going to point to 8.8.8.8. And you can see right away it didn't time out trying to contact that server, so if you do anything, like dsu.edu, it should all go there, and we should have DNS working like that. So getting closer here, last thing I'm going to do, just pull up a web browser and see if we can hit it. So you're going to get directed out to the IA Labs captive portal, which is no big deal. Just use your DSU credentials for it. And if you get those credentials correct, what it should do is just redirect you back out, and you get internet access on it for like 24 hours, I think, before it makes you re-authenticate to that. So, perfect. We're looking good. Let's make sure we can actually get out to other places as well. Excellent. Looks like we should be good. So basically, if you kind of wanted to make sure that you're ready for getting QoS, right, high-level steps that we did, we erased the firewall completely and reloaded it. We'd made sure the gig0 interface is connected up to vCloud Internet, got its IP address through DHCP. The gig01 interface was connected up to our LAN, and we statically had set that, created a DHCP pool. We made sure that the web interface was accessible from the inside of our network, and then created the source NAT and everything. And just to be sure, right, I'll go through this firewall real quickly. So if you needed to see parts of the config, things like that, we can have this to kind of refer back to. So we'll full screen that and then just do a show configure, kind of walk through the scheme real quick. So we'd set the password, change web management to the inside using SSL, created the DHCP pool. So big things there was just the name server and default gateway. So interfaces I was just talking about, so the outside's getting its address from DHCP, inside was statically set. There's a static route here I'd put in during troubleshooting. You shouldn't need it, but if things aren't working, just try to throw that static route in. You should be okay. And here's what our NAT config looked like. Again, we did this from the web management interface. You could certainly do that through the command line as well. And lastly, we'll have our security zones. So the trust zone, we're just taking every piece of traffic that originates from the inside of our network and trusting it. On the outside, it's that pretty locked down zone as well. But anyways, that should be it for this video, and then we will set up QoS in the next set of steps.